be able to find the article. And he talked about where Goody has been lately. And he opened up the article, said everyone knows the history. The Green Bay Packers have not drafted a wide receiver in the first round of the NFL draft since 2002. That was about a year and a half before Texas receiver Matthew Golden was born. Arizona receiver Tet McMillan was about a year from being born. And Ohio State receiver Emeka Egbuka, the old man of the group of receivers, who Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst personally scouted over the last week, was only 6 months old. So it's saying that Brian Gutekunst actually personally scouted Emeka Egbuka at the Ohio State Pro Day. It shows him with the picture here. It shows Emeka jumping his vertical, and Goody's right there watching him. Like you can see him in the front row. So today on the yesterday on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, he talks about deployment and Emeka Egbuka. I know we had a conversation last night. Is Emeka Egbuka only a slot? Here's what Greg Cosell had to say specifically about Emeka Egbuka. And I want to get your all's take on how you feel where he may or may not rise up the board. He obviously got the Greg Cosell bonus, but here we go.
We'll be wrong.
What about Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, a guy that we've been talking about for a couple years?
Yeah.
Feels like he's been at Ohio State a long time. Thought he'd probably leave school last year with Harrison Jr. He didn't. What do you think of Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, Greg?
I mean, for what he is, I love the kid. And I listened to him speak at the podium at the Combine, and he speaks like a 10-year pro. I mean, this kid, he's predominantly a slot receiver at Ohio State. Now, the way the game has changed, that could mean a lot of things. I mean, you put him on a team like the Rams, and I'm not saying that's where he's going. Obviously they signed Devontae Adams, but
so Rams, that's the offense we run. We run McVay's offense in Green Bay, for those of you who want.
You put him with teams that have a lot of reduced splits, and theoretically he could be an out.
When he says reduced splits, that's what we refer to as nasty splits. You'll hear us in Chalk Talk all the time saying, whatever, bunch nasty X or nasty Z, whatever it may be.
Outside receiver in reduced split formations. But he's got a physical presence. There's a fluidity to him that shows up both as a route runner and with the ball in his hands. He really understands how to run routes, pace, tempo, different releases. His footwork is really controlled. I mean, he looks like a 10-year pro. I mean, the guy that I thought of when I watched him, and I watched him last summer. I watched all his 2023 targets. I've actually watched all his 2022 targets, his 2023 targets, and his 2024 targets. And last summer, the guy I thought of was Tyler Boyd in his prime. Because Boyd had like 3 or 4 years where he caught 90 balls, somewhere in that range. I think that Egbuka is just a pro. He's going to come in. He's going to do the right things. He's going to run the right routes. You can move him around a bit. He's not an explosive player. He's not a vertical guy. He's just, to me, just a really solid guy. He's going to play in the league for 12 years, and he's just going to be a really good player.
And so the reason why he's not thought of more highly is because he's not quite as explosive or dynamic as some of the other guys?
Yeah, he does not have that explosive element to his game. But, again, the way look, you could argue Puka Nacua doesn't have an explosive element to guys who are really just precise route runners. Think what Amon-Ra St. Brown has done in the Lions offense. No one would say that Amon-Ra St. Brown has the physical traits of Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, because he doesn't. But he understands everything about route running to a high level, and you put him in an offense like that, and he's a volume receiver and a high-level volume receiver. If you dropped Egbuka into that offense instead of St. Brown, it's possible he could be the same guy in terms of volume targets, just because he just knows, he understands, he gets it. So, it all depends on where you go offensively and, what the route concepts are, what the coaching staff is. But Egbuka is a really quality receiver who understands the subtleties of the position.
It's really interesting. That was the name I was going to bring up, because the way you were describing him, Greg, I was like, gosh, that kind of sounds a little bit like what people said about Amon-Ra St. Brown when he was coming out.
And he was a 4th-round pick. So let's understand that Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he had a really good career at USC, no one saw him just with his traits as a top 50 pick. So That's what. Look at Puka Nacua. He was a 5th-round pick, I believe. So much depends on the offense you're in and how you're deployed, and then guys can become volume receivers.
He was the best guy around.
So there you go. Obviously, talking about knowing how to run routes. You guys remember Aaron Rodgers' last year in Green Bay? How many times he was doing the whole,
Yep.
And then Matt LaFleur mentioning, how soon could they put Jayden Reed in what he was referring to as the F, which is essentially a moving Z is what it turns into. And when he's talking about the nasty splits or the condensed splits, he's talking about as you'll move that Z in, he may technically get a slot snap. But if you're running wolf, guess what? Both routes are breaking out, one with a deep corner. And go back and watch, I think it might have been the Rams game actually. Or was it the Rams? Who was it? Maybe the Texans. The deep shot and triple coverage to Jayden Reed was more of a post than a climb. Typically with a climb, you're going to peak that at 30 yards, right? With this, it was more of like a deep post into triple coverage. He brings down the catch. Again, I also say go back and watch the Saints game from his rookie year, making that diving grab on the slot fade as well. So when you're talking about these type of receivers, I think it was funny too that you mentioned Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? He was the receiver that was in Ohio State, the year before last. And what did he do? He went to Seattle, lined up in the slot, and what did he end up with? 1,200 yards, 1,100 yards, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. Literally, he outworked DK to the point where DK Metcalf is now no longer a Seattle Seahawk. So Emeka Egbuka is kind of cut from the same type of cloth there. And I love that he mentioned Puka Nacua because we were all over that on this particular show, that draft. Puka Nacua, another guy that doesn't have elite traits, that can be a dominant player when he's on his game, which is most of the time. And I love the comparison to Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you guys could draft Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick 23, would you do it? I would run the damn card up there. I'll tell you something else that comes to mind too. You guys remember us talking about Brian Branch? The year he came out. That was the first year on the pod. What did everybody say? He's too small. He's too small. He's too small. Brian Branch is out there whooping people on the football field. So you got to be real careful with the whole size thing and how people are deployed and all that. And it like he said, it comes down to there's not every offense in the league that you would look at Egbuka like anything other than a slot. But in a Sean McVay offense, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I think another guy that comes to mind with that is like a Kyle Hamilton. How people in the draft are like, well, he may be the best safety, but his traits just aren't there, and the athletic traits aren't there, and the skill set. And then what does he do? He comes in on the scene and is arguably one of the best safeties in the whole National Football League. So,
right, exactly.
I think at the receiver position, just talking about Ohio State's program. I mean, you mentioned JSN, right?
Yeah.
So you got JSN, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., and now we got Emeka Egbuka. And clearly they're churning out talent here, top tier talent at the receiver position. So
that actually goes with what Andy Monday was saying. He says Egbuka had lots of other receivers in the wide receiver room at OSU. So he's used to not being the dominant wide receiver, which would maybe help him fit our team situation quite well. Which actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so too, especially when we talk about bringing receivers in, right? We talk about the depth in the room already, the project that's been going on for the last 2 to 3 years, bringing in young talent. So, I think it's a testament to what Ohio State's doing with their receiver rooms, and it's churning out guys that are, able to come in their, first and second years in the NFL and, be relevant to their teams and know how to be a seasoned pro, kind of like Andy's saying, like you pointed out, Jacob, like, no stranger to playing a complementary role or, being another talented guy in a room full of talented guys. You don't have to worry about the ego and the big headedness if everyone kind of buys in and we're all trying to eat together and it helps the team, So I think, looking at Egbuka and really Ohio State's program as a whole, college football fans aside, regardless of where your loyalties lie, you can't deny that, these past few drafts, man, there's talent there at the receiver position.
Yeah. So based off what Greg Cosell said about Emeka Egbuka and how he felt the type of player he was, we gave him a 3-point bonus. We didn't give him the normal 5-point bonus there because I didn't feel like he was like, oh, this guy's the best wide receiver in the draft, but he spoke very, very highly of him. With that being said, now along with Emeka Egbuka's 9+ RAS, he is in the 18 spot on our big board. So if he's there at 23 and Goody likes what he sees, what he's seen at that pro day, that may be the guy he goes with. And if you can move him around a lot, like Greg Cosell suggested, imagine him and Jaden Reed on the field at the same time. No longer can they key in on Jaden Reed on the end arounds. It's going to look like cue up the circus music. And the fact that they said the big thing on Emeka Egbuka is he acts like a 10-year vet, right? What does that mean? It means he understands how to run the route tree. It means he knows how to talk to the media. And he's just, like y'all said, a team player, like Andy pointed out, is someone that could probably fit perfectly into that locker room. So it all shakes out, obviously. But we got some news earlier today